Laz at Automated Systems. Call 844-HIRE-ASI or visit hireasi.com. That's 844-HIRE-ASI, 844-HIRE-ASI, or online at hireasi.com.
Staples Print and Marketing Services helps your business turn big ideas into bigger ideas. Now when you make a print and marketing services purchase, you get 20% off your next order. In-store only, offer ends 11/9/19, exclusions apply. See staples.com/print20 for details. Staples.
It is 7:07. Let's get an update on the roads with Jim Talamonte.
Inbound Kennedy traffic is heavy all the way in from O'Hare. We're looking at 50 minutes O'Hare to downtown, 20 from Montrose. No savings in the express. Outbound, it's 46 minutes downtown to the airport. Edens, 25 minutes Lake Cook Junction, outbound 20. Eisenhower, 54 minutes, 390 to downtown. 39 from Manheim, outbound 40 minutes downtown to 390. Stevenson, 45 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive, outbound 37. Ryan, 22 minutes, 95th to downtown. I-57, 20 minutes, 90 to the Merge, Bishop 425. Northbound tri-state delays are 95th to 87th, from the Stevenson to 47th, and from the Reagan Tollway to the Bensonville Bridge. Reagan Tollway's heavy, 22nd to the tri-state. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center and our meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Considerable cloudiness this morning, a chilly morning, then some sun, but this afternoon could see a shower, high 50. Partly cloudy, brisk, and cold tonight, low 30. And then intervals of clouds and sun, cold day tomorrow, the high at 42. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
44 at O'Hare, 45 Lakefront. Next news, 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Don't miss the ammo event this weekend at Shoot Point Blank. Pick up great deals on ammo, like 50 rounds of 9mm as low as $10.99 per box. The more ammo you buy, the more you save. Load up this weekend at Shoot Point Blank's ammo event. See store for details.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Bad news for the shrill identitarians, champagne socialists, and bipartisan ruling class of kleptocrats, as well as their adoring Illinois press corps. Dan and Amy are sticking around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to our Chicago's Morning Answer listeners and guests and advocates. Without you, we wouldn't have these phony baloney cushy jobs where we get paid a lot to work 4 hours a day. And so we appreciate it.
What did you get for your signing bonus? Because I got a new used 2009 minivan.
You upgraded.
I did.
Oh, good for you.
I still have an antenna on the car and, seat warmers, but it's all right. I'm happy.
That's sweet.
It's got 110,000 miles on it, but it's parked out front.
That's like sort of on par with sort of the Hunter Biden compensation packages to which we've become familiar.
I didn't get as much as the Chicago Teachers Union members, but that's all right. I mean, are you kidding me? Who's got a deal like that?
That's rarefied air. But here's the thing. Joe Biden was on with Judy Woodruff of PBS, sat down for a little interview, and that courtship of Hunter's father thing continues to dog him. He tried again to explain what he did and didn't know about what Hunter was or wasn't doing. He didn't know anything. Oh, yeah. And despite that, Hunter didn't do anything wrong. And neither did he, of course. And the only reason he announced that no family members will be part of a Biden administration is because of what's happening now. It has nothing to do with Hunter.
My question is, both of you have said you would not, as president, have your children, have him or your children involved with foreign countries. My question is, if it's not appropriate if Joe Biden is president, why was it appropriate when you were vice president?
Well, number one, no one's established that he did anything wrong or that I've done anything wrong. Period. I carried out the policy of the United States of America, our allies, the International Monetary Fund, the EU, in dealing with a corrupt prosecutor, period. Number one, I did not know he was on the board of that company. And in fact, no one's asserted on the board that it was illegal for him to be on the board or he did anything wrong.
But if you had known, would you have said don't, or would you have said this is wrong?
No, it's not wrong. His words speak for themselves. He wished he had realized how thugs like Rudy Giuliani and his cronies and the cronies of the president would try to paint it. The fact is, there's been nothing established that he did anything wrong. The reason for my saying my children would not be involved in foreign affairs and or in any affairs is because of what's happened in this administration.
He said he never knew that Hunter was on the board of Burisma.
Are you kidding me?
Hunter said that
he talked to his dad, and his dad said, "Don't mess this up," or "I hope you know what you're doing."
Hope you know what you're doing. Yeah. And remember, he was on the board 2014 was when he was installed on the board of Burisma. Also, this from the Washington Examiner, which obtained some internal State Department correspondence. John Kerry's stepson, who's partners with Hunter Biden in that Rosemont Seneca Partners that got $1 billion private equity infusion, or $1 billion infusion of Chinese money into the private equity fund. John Kerry's stepson rushed to play damage control at the State Department after his business partner, Hunter Biden, cut the deal with Burisma and was installed on the board in 2014. So Biden's decision to join the board of Ukraine's Burisma holding sparked immediate concern within the inner circle about the political optics. This is when Biden was vice president and point man for Ukrainian policy. So what do you mean you didn't know? Of course you knew. It was announced in 2014. You were the vice president of the United States. I mean, you're saying like after at some point you were told that this occurred if you didn't get the State Department cable, and you said, don't screw it up, or I hope you know what you're doing, according to your son. So is your son lying? Are you lying? When exactly did you know? Why can't you get your story straight with what the heck you and Hunter and the administration were doing collectively?
And you'd think they would now because they're under the watchful eye of the nation and they're making up lies and telling different stories.
It's not going well. For more on this topic and a few others, we're pleased to be joined again by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, Vice President of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, author of books including Wiki at War and Private Sector Public Wars. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
So, I mean, again, I'm not suggesting that Hunter did anything wrong or Joe Biden should be retroactively impeached. But is this a legitimate area of inquiry when you have the Vice President of the United States at least appearing to have a conflict of interest and unable to get his story straight? Shouldn't this be part of a look back at 2016 with respect to things that are of a particular foreign policy concern to us, like the corruption or lack thereof that is occurring in countries that receive U.S. aid and or meddling in elections by allies or actors in allied countries who are not allies?
Yeah, well, I do policy, not politics.
Well, this isn't politics. This isn't politics.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And on the policy side, the legal stuff is not my thing, and so I leave that to the legal guys. The only comment I will make is I agree with Joe Biden. It hasn't been proven that he's broken the law. But what I find really interesting is he turns around and he thoroughly chastises a bunch of people who are in government or who are working with the White House who it hasn't been proven they've broken the law either.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think this is what's coming out of their mouth is all about politics, and I think I think that's how most Americans look at it.
And so when you hear
I just focus on the policy. I don't think I focus on the policy part.
Well, let me ask you the policy part, because Steve Scalise gave a policy response to Trump's inquiry about corruption in Ukraine. He says, look, the president has every right, in fact, responsibility to inquire as to concerns about corruption in a country that we're going to provide aid to, particularly military aid.
I think that's a completely accurate statement, And I think it's actually something Vice President Biden should have said, because if he said, I was focused on corruption in Ukraine, I'm not sure why it's okay for him to be focused on corruption in Ukraine, but it's not okay for the president of the current president of the United States to be focused on that. So, I mean, and I love Steve, and Steve just cut through the whole thing. The rank hypocrisy of all of this is just stunning, when literally, from what we know so far, what's been discussed, what's been released, what's been made available by both sides, in foreign policy, it sounds like Tuesday. I mean, it's just the kind of thing that governments do all the time. FDR cut a deal with Churchill because he said, Americans don't want us to get into the war. I can't just give you something for nothing. I'll give you 50 destroyers, but you've got to give me something in return. So let me give me some islands in the Caribbean so I can say I got something for it. That's a quid pro quo, and it's a quid pro quo that was designed to get around the current base of politics in America. That's how foreign policy gets done. It is, and certainly not breaking the law, because the Constitution, by and large, made the president the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, made him the chief officer making foreign policy, to exercise discretion in these activities overseas. And when there are specific questions of legality and how the United States does foreign actions overseas, we have very specific laws to deal with that. For example, the United States cannot give money to somebody to do something. That's illegal, right? And what's very interesting to me in both the case of Biden and both the case of the president, there's this discussion about criminality. There's very little said about, well, what specific law was violated here?
Thinking about the deep state, I got to ask this. We just talked to Admiral James Stavridis about his new book, and I asked him about this deep state thing. When John McLaughlin, former acting CIA director, says that the deep state, and thank God for it, you're conceding there's a deep state. What are we supposed to make of that? Are we supposed to make, as some have asserted, I've asked, I mean, do we have a fifth column action in the intelligence community against this president? Is that conspiratorial? Is that too strong? Do we have some bad actors in CIA and other agencies that are trying to undermine this presidency in ways that are not legitimate? Or is it systemic? I mean, can you help us with order of magnitude on what the issue is with the intelligence community, if you think there is one?
So I think not just the intelligence community, but throughout government. I think by and large, and I know a lot of these people, I've worked with many, many people, and they're not part of the deep state. So I will say that by and large, my impression of people in government is they're just like everybody else. They go to work, they do their job. There are many people who are in government because they truly believe in the importance of serving the American people, and they're disgusted, I think, and appalled by this as anybody else. But we have always had political actors inside the government working against the administration and being sometimes individually, sometimes in organized group. I think what we have here, which I think is something truly exceptional, is, for example, in the FBI, the potential, and this is being investigated by the Attorney General, so it's not a conspiracy theory or anything, that people are actually doing things which would qualify as obstruction of justice, creating perceptions of illegality, and then weaponizing that and turning against the administration. That's pretty unusual.
And when you have, and then again, we don't know if he said this, but it was reported, because it was behind closed doors, that Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who testified last week, said that he was deeply troubled by Trump's effort to subvert U.S. policy. That was that's something he reportedly said. If he did say that, isn't that statement deeply troubling? That he's deciding whether the president is subverting foreign policy?
I have to be honest. Look, I haven't been following these things that much because this is a legal issue, and I leave it to the legal guys. But from my perspective as a retired serving officer, I felt that whole thing come off as very inappropriate. that, again, I haven't seen his testimony, and you're right, we haven't seen the transcript, but if somebody is literally testifying the fact that I don't like the way the president did foreign policy, that's incredibly inappropriate for a serving officer to elicit that kind of testimony. Look, I worked in the Pentagon when Bill Clinton was president. I never liked Bill Clinton. But the notion that I would, with my uniform on, go in front of Congress and testify that I just don't like the way he's dealing with, gays in the military or something, that's unbelievably inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before we let you go, it happened after we last spoke. So the raid on al-Baghdadi and how important the killing of Baghdadi was. I think it would. Well, maybe we did talk to you about it once, but the response throughout last week to the decision and the suggestion that this occurred in spite of President Trump's withdrawal from Syria, essentially in spite of President Trump, even though he's the one who greenlighted the operation.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about the whole Syria story is how it's completely dropped off the radar screen virtually. And the reason for that is virtually every one of the screaming, yelly criticisms, we're abandoning the Kurds. This is going to be genocide. The Russians are going to take over. The caliphate's going to come roaring back. None of that appears to be likely or even true in many cases. We haven't actually abandoned the Kurds. We haven't actually left Syria. We continue to fight against ISIS. And and I think there's a great book to be written here because it's so typical of so many of these attacks on the administration. Is there were these incredible attacks about all these terrible, horrible things he's going to have, and he's going to start war with Iran. He's going to start war with North Korea. He's going to turn Europe over to the Russians. And they're big stories for about a week, and then it's just perfectly clear they're not true. And then there's no introspection. There's no analysis. We just move on to the next criticism. So I think it's really interesting today that, there's almost no, I do a column for Fox every week and write on current events and just kind of scrolling through Twitter. Nobody's talking about foreign policy. It's just all about impeachment. And I think the whole Syria story was largely one of a political creation.
So you don't think the D.C. press corps is truly concerned with the self-determination of the Kurds? It's going to follow that closely? Boy, that comes as a real surprise.
I'm sorry, they can spell Kurd.
Yeah, exactly. Who are they again? Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, Vice President of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at Heritage. Thanks for joining us as always, Jim. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, congrats on getting renewed there. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Message and data rates may apply. Individual results vary. Exclusions apply.
Contacts and glasses are such a hassle. I'd love to finally get LASIK, but
I'm going to stop you right there. If you want LASIK, then the LASIK Vision Institute has officially taken away everything standing in your way.
Isn't LASIK expensive?
Not at the LASIK Vision Institute. We're offering dramatically low prices and an absolutely free consultation. See for free if LASIK is right for you by texting TOP to 350350.
But I'm really busy.
A text only takes seconds. The LASIK procedure typically only takes 15 minutes, and most patients can get back to work the following day. The LASIK Vision Institute uses the latest FDA-approved LASIK technology that helps the majority of patients achieve 20/20 vision. Dr. Greenberg has performed 75,000 LASIK surgeries and is one of the most experienced LASIK surgeons in Chicago. And we're offering 20% off our already low-cost services.
What's that text again?
Text TOP to 350350. That's TOP to 350350 to schedule your free consultation